Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is the astrology for February 21st through 27th, 2022. So last week, as you may or may not know, we did a pre-recorded show, but here we are, we're live again. So if you are watching live, do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see where in the world everybody is. But my name is Katie Sweetman, which I said a few moments ago, and I'm located here in the New York City area. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology and to discuss, to even open up our ideas, the fact that the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. So how do we work with this time? And we had a lot of astrology going on last week. And this week it's going to give Pisces season its due because we didn't really have a chance to dive into Pisces season last week. But yeah, like I said, like how do we work with this time and understanding that astrology is merely the energy of time. It's the archetype of time. It's how we live the seasons of life and how we live the 12 zodiac signs. And of course, everybody's going to navigate Pisces season a little bit differently depending on their sun sign. That's something we will talk about later when we go through each of the sun signs. But yeah, and this is, I realize this might be a basic point, but sometimes people don't know this. Like, you are all 12 signs. You're not just your sun sign. You've got all of the zodiac in your astrology chart. It's this map, the exact moment that you're born. It's a blueprint. And the blueprint, it is saying, okay, this is how your life is constructed. This is how the house, air quotes, is constructed. But how do you live in it? So this is why I try to get people to shift their thinking a little bit and how they look at astrology. And, you know, when I meet people, especially those who have very little interest in astrology, and I have to explain all this. Astrology isn't just sun signs. It's actually, you know, a lot more than that. But yeah, let's dive into Pisces season. So last week on February 18th, the sun went into Pisces. And when the sun went into Pisces, we started the end of the zodiac calendar. And maybe you don't think about the zodiac as a calendar, but that's actually what astrology and the zodiac is. It's calendar. And it's how the ancients knew when to plant, they knew when to harvest, they knew when to set up their seasons. I was explaining to somebody yesterday, we were talking about Easter, and I was like, Easter is the full moon after the Sunday after the full moon after the spring equinox. And that's a lot of hoops to jump through. But there's so many things in our lives that are actually, if you look at it culturally, they're tied to astrology. So Pisces season, we've reached the end of the zodiac. And you have to think back to, let's say, last March 2021, when we started our zodiac journey, when the sun arrived in Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It represents the I, the self, the spark of life, individuality, and also the bravery and courage to start something new, to move forward on a journey. And when we go symbolically through each of the signs of the zodiac, things are getting more complex. You know, from the very sort of the rudiments of Aries and Taurus and even Gemini, you know, the self and the spark of life and sort of matter and the physical and manifestation and Taurus, and then we get to speech and communication and movement with Gemini, and then we get to home and family and emotional connections with Cancer, and so forth and so forth. And when we get to Pisces, we've reached the end. We're at the last water sign. Pisces, it takes the energies of Cancer and the moon and the mother and emotional connection and something very familiar, and then it builds through Scorpio, the second water sign, where it's not just my feelings, it's our feelings. It's that intimacy and vulnerability, and sometimes bracing intimacy and vulnerability that's needed between two people in order to create strong emotional connections. If you've ever been in a crisis with somebody, especially somebody that actually has risen to the occasion, has stood by you, it makes you feel that sense of connection on a level you've never felt before, you know that that's powerful. And suddenly it becomes this measure against everything else in your life. And that's really, positive Scorpio, positive water, positive, that, intensity, of course, forged through these sometimes difficult experiences. And then we get to Pisces, the last water sign, and it's not my emotions, not your emotions, it's everyone's emotions. And Pisces speaks to the universality of the emotional experience, how something can happen half across the world and we are moved by it, or the fact that we understand on a level of compassion and empathy that there are things that are just absolutely universal to the human experience: birth, death, endings, the joys of life, but also sometimes the sorrows of life as well. And so Pisces, in a way, encompasses a lot of different things. And when we reach the end of the zodiac, there is a sense that we have come to the end of a journey. You may or may not know that Pisces, the symbol of Pisces, is two fish actually swimming in different directions. And that sort of talks about the dual nature of Pisces, duality. Pisces is also what's called a mutable sign. The mutable signs, just for the record, are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, and that sense of duality in the first mutable sign of Gemini, where it's my choices, something very personal. But when we get to Pisces, it's the choices that we make for humanity. It's the choices that we make for something much larger than ourselves. And it's in Pisces that we meet our spirituality. The duality of the two fishes is the fact that at the end of our lives, God forbid, but someday, we are two things. We are both matter and spirit. And matter returns to matter, and spirit returns to spirits. The fishes going in two directions. But it also can say that the end of the journey and evolution that we've been on, maybe sometimes we go one way, maybe sometimes we go the other. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can interpret Pisces. And I think, in all due deference to Pisces, I think sometimes it's a sign that's not given its full credit, because, sometimes we get that, Pisces ditzy or kind of scattered or ungrounded. And I don't think that's always fair, because it's actually a very beautiful, spiritual, rich, compassionate sign. And I think anybody that's born under Pisces or actually has a strong connection to Pisces, you may have other planets in Pisces. For me personally, I have a South Node in Pisces. So Pisces is something as an archetype that's very strong in my soul's journey. Like, I understand Pisces, but Pisces as an archetype, you have to take the non-manifested, the non-physical, the lack of ego, the humility of Pisces, the best part of Pisces, and bring it into form, and which is hard, because Pisces can be the saint, but we're not always saints. And so Pisces season is a reminder for us to be altruistic, to maybe be better people. But sometimes we really feel the ache of things just not going our way, or not the way that we want them to be. And sometimes we do feel not selfless, but selfish during Pisces season. But that said, it's a water sign. It's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Pisces right now. Jupiter's in its home sign. It's been in its home sign since December of 2021. So the energy of Pisces is very strong right now, because it's bolstered by Jupiter, this very big benevolent force in our solar system. My joke is like, how big is Jupiter? How big is Jupiter, Katie? Jupiter is so big that it protects Earth by its gravitation. It bounces asteroids and comets away from Earth. So think about that next time you're wondering if an asteroid is going to hurtle towards the Earth. We have Jupiter, for the most part, that's protecting us, but that's neither here nor there. So Jupiter is this energy of benevolence, but it's also this energy that inspires us to search and to find answers. In the lineup of planets in astrology, you have the personal planets. You have the sun and the moon, which are lights. They are the luminaries. They sort of give and receive life and light. And then we have the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, which talk about sort of how we do things on a very personal human level. How do we communicate? How do we speak? How do we socialize? How do we love? how do we take action? How do we fight for what we need, or even what we believe in? Mars. We get to Jupiter. Jupiter is a planet that talks about something bigger. It's societal. It's something about, things that are like, cause and effect and law and justice. And Jupiter as this sort of planet that plays off the energies of Saturn. So Jupiter, it has two rulerships. It rules Sagittarius, and for if some of you scratching your head and be like, wait, Jupiter rules Pisces? Yes, traditionally Jupiter rules Pisces. So you have this dual rulership. You have this dual rulership in all the planets except for the sun and the moon. But Jupiter in Sagittarius is about how do we find wisdom and knowledge outside of ourselves. Maybe we have to go to college or university. Maybe we have to hop on a plane or search the world, or really focus on study and even religion and philosophy and law, and trying to understand our life outside of ourselves and trying to develop a sense of right and wrong. This is Jupiter in Sagittarius. But Jupiter in Pisces, where Jupiter is right now, is about, the answers are within. We don't have to go on a plane. We don't have to travel the world. We don't have to go to, some fancy university. This is about finding the answers within. It's very quiet, subtle side of Jupiter. And it's in that we find spirituality with Jupiter in Pisces. We find inner faith, inner wisdom, inner truth, meditation, prayer. And so here we are at the end of the zodiac, and we need to find answers. We need to try to make meaning of things. And maybe after everything that we've been through over the last year and a half, we really do need to try to find answers, but also on a deeper level to feed our soul. Because it's in Pisces that we do find not just our universality, but we do find our soul, we do find our spirit, we find that energy, the light of the divine that connects each and every one of us. So I realize it's a little bit esoteric, but Pisces is an esoteric sign. So you can't get more abstract than Pisces. We're not in the earth signs. We're not in Capricorn and sort of matter and manifestation and the material. We're not even in Cancer, which is home and family. We're in something much bigger than this. So this is something that, I want you all to think about as we go through the next 4 weeks, because we're going to have a Pisces new moon next week on March 2nd, which is crazy to think that's going to be March next week. And that Pisces new moon is going to be making what's called a conjunction to Jupiter and Pisces. A conjunction just means that the two planets are in the same sky, same part of the sky. And just as a side note, I know many of you have learned that Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and I'm not going to, I personally have my own opinions, but Neptune it was only discovered in like 1846, I think, and astrology, of course, has been around a lot longer, and many people feel very strongly about Neptune being the ruler of Pisces. For me, when you see the schema of rulership, you see this very beautiful duality that exists in everything. And when you start to take things out, the energy doesn't flow the same way. And really rulership isn't, this is a totally nerdy technical point. Rulership is not affinity. Rulership is like engineering. It's how energy connects from one place to another. So anyway, that's why I talk about the duality of Jupiter as the ruler of Pisces and Sagittarius. But Neptune is also in Pisces. It's actually been in Pisces since 2012, and Neptune spends 14 years in a sign. And Neptune is not an easy planet because it's an evolutionary planet. It has a very different energy than Jupiter, as much as I personally believe that Jupiter in Pisces is a very beautiful, rich energy. I don't know, I've been enjoying it this year. I don't know about you, but Neptune, its function is it's evolutionary in nature, and it's trying to get us to grow and evolve by any means possible. And there's a story, or there's a path with Neptune, and there's certainly a path with Neptune and Pisces, and we have to, in a way, go into the depths of Pisces, our illusions, our confusions, the things that are not true, the lies that we can get caught up in, and where we feel lost, in order to sort of come out of that process and to transmute something that is creating separation or creating suffering. Because then there is that higher side of Neptune and Pisces, the energy of the divine, the energy of redemption. I realize redemption is a big word, compassion, but it hasn't always been easy. And you've seen a lot of craziness in the last, what are we at, like 10 years since Neptune went into Pisces. So I think sometimes when we get that strong hit of Neptune, even though we're like, oh, Neptune, Pisces, so beautiful, you really get that energy where there's usually like an outpouring of emotion. Sometimes events can happen on a larger level that really remind us that we're all connected, remind us of our shared humanity. But I just sort of put that to this little bit of a side in case people are wondering about Neptune and Pisces. It's, Neptune and Pisces has been a work. It just doesn't work on the level than, let's say, Pluto has over the last 14 years, or Uranus and Taurus has worked since 2019. Neptune is actually quite subtle, and it works on a level like the moon. It's very atmospheric. It's pushing and pulling and blurring the edges of our reality. So we will have that energy at different points throughout Pisces season, especially as the sun comes up to its annual conjunction to Neptune. But in the meantime, we're getting ready for the sun's annual conjunction to Jupiter, which will be next week. We'll talk about that then. But I wanted to give you all a deep dive into Pisces season because I think it's a sign that really deserves credit, but more importantly for us to understand where have we arrived after each and every sign that we've walked through and built upon and evolved through over the last 11 months, because it really truly is, and this is, astrology is a circle, the zodiac is a wheel. There is an ending, but there's also a beginning. And each time we get to this space in the sky, we've come to the end of something. Something has to be integrated. It has to be shared. Jupiter is the planet of sharing wisdom and knowledge. It has to be, in a way, inscribed in eternity. I think there's an element of the life that we've lived, the things that we've learned, the choices that we've made by the time that we reach Pisces season, that we are truly putting something back out there in the universe for everybody. It's very, like I said, Pisces is a very universal sign. So that's your deep dive into Pisces season. Let's look at the astrology of this week of February 21st through 27th, 2022. A little bit of a quiet week. So I was giving, another reason why I was giving Pisces its full credit. This week, you may or may not know this, but Venus is still in Capricorn. It's been in Capricorn for a while. I think it's been Capricorn since December, maybe a little bit longer, but Venus is in Capricorn. It's been in sort of the slow conjunction to Mars. This is sort of teaching us what is love, what is relationship. Love and relationship is about commitment. It's about building a future together. It's about, and I realize this is not just romantic relationship. I'm only saying this because Valentine's Day was last week, but I think with Venus and Mars and Capricorn, this is about a relationship that's built to last. A relationship that has a sense of equity, but also staying power, because of the energy of Saturn. And this week, Mars will make what's called a sextile to Neptune, followed by Venus having a sextile to Neptune. And sextiles are really quiet influences in astrology. I don't typically point them out. They don't have the same level of manifestation as a square or an opposition, but it's a quiet energy. And last week, and it's still in the astrology, we had Jupiter sextile Uranus. So there's some opportunities this week to have a different type of relationship, to maybe heal something from the past. There's this energy of forgiveness and compassion and redemption, and maybe to have a very tender connection with somebody, or a friend, or somebody in our community, with this energy. I will say, that said, Mercury is over in Aquarius. It's coming to the end of its retrograde shadow. If you know me, I typically don't make a big fuss about Mercury retrograde. I think it's a little bit overdone culturally. However, Mercury is starting to clear the space that it was walking back on, when it turned retrograde on January 14th. Now, the thing that I want to point out this week is that Mercury makes a square to Uranus. Uranus is a Taurus, Mercury is in Aquarius, and they didn't quite make the square back on January 14th when Mercury turned retrograde. So this is sort of a coda to our Mercury retrograde. Maybe it's a resolution or a conversation that was started back in January that is coming to some sort of closure. But the thing about Mercury to Uranus and like Neptune, as I was saying earlier, Uranus is an evolutionary planet. So Uranus is trying to shake up and get us to evolve how we think, listen, learn, analyze, communicate. And sometimes when you have that hard energy to a planet, in this case Mercury, things can shake us. Things can come out of the blue. We get information that we weren't expecting. We hear something that maybe shocks us. But then there's Mercury and Uranus. Uranus is the energy of consciousness, and how Uranus is trying to wake up how we see things, maybe even wake up how we communicate, get us to see something that maybe has been in our blind spot, perhaps, and maybe listen more to our intuitive voice. But there is an energy in all of this square about choice, and maybe this week we were having to look at making different choices, and maybe these choices were based on something that has shook up in a way this week. This is in advance of Mercury making a conjunction to, I think it's next week, it makes a conjunction to Saturn. That's a little bit more of a bigger deal, although Mercury is starting to move a little bit more faster in Aquarius at this point. But this is all in advance of, say, the Pisces new moon next week on March 2nd. So as we get to later this week, and by the way, that Mercury square Uranus is on the 24th. So I believe that's Thursday. So really look to see what's going on with conversations and the choices that you're making, and how you're coming to a close of something that began around the middle of January. But as we go into this weekend, we're starting to end the lunar month, especially as we go into Sunday and Monday. I think the first is Tuesday. And I think the new moon is Wednesday. So the idea is that when we get to the end of the lunar month, it's typically not a high energy time. It's more of a time to reflect, to go in, to sort, much like Pisces season. That's the thing about astrology. You sort of see these repeated themes and cycles, and the end of the lunar cycle does have an energy of Pisces to it. So a little bit of a quieter weekend, but one that centers on the energy of Capricorn and Aquarius and Saturn, and needing to make space in order to get ready for the next chapter of our lives, the next astrological year. And I think that's sort of the sort of play that's happening with Jupiter and Pisces and this upcoming Pisces new moon, is that in order for something to come into our lives, in order for there to be something better, we have to actually see it. We have to actually vision it, and maybe make space for it. So maybe that's something that we are thinking about this weekend. So I'm going to go through the 12 signs of the zodiac and where Pisces season, where is Pisces for each of the 12 signs? And maybe you never thought about how Pisces governs one particular area of your life. And whenever there's a new moon, a full moon, an eclipse, or Jupiter or another planet like Neptune, that area of your life is getting highlighted. So let's go around the zodiac and start with Aries. So Aries, you have what's called a natural chart. Aries is the first sign, and so everything starts and ends with you. And so Pisces is your 12th sign. So everything that I was saying earlier about Pisces and reaching the end of something is very true for you, Aries. And so to that point, with the sun in Pisces, and we're coming up to the new moon next week, this is not your season to push. And this is a reminder that there is a time in your personal calendar to rest, to recuperate, to regenerate, to prepare for your season, Aries season, but also the start of the astrological year. Also, it's the equinox, the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere. And so really take your time this Pisces season. You take your time this week. Don't push, as I said before, but also this is a time for you to cultivate your spirituality. And spirituality means different things to different people. But on one level, if we kind of take the spirituality out of it, this is a time for you to remember that you can't always be in your head. You can't always, you can't neglect the subtleties of life, and that there is metaphor, there is deeper meaning, there is subtext, there's dreams and intuition. So Pisces season is your time to really connect to these things. So use this week and beyond, the season beyond, to really nourish your soul, to get back in touch with something that sometimes we lose track of in our mundane day-to-day life. And again, Aries, slow down. Taurus. So for you, Taurus, Pisces is what's called your 11th sign. So Pisces governs over friends, community, society, humanity, and sort of these bigger picture questions in your life. Where do I belong? Who are my people? So with Pisces as the sign that talks about your friendships, there's typically, you want, a deep connection with your friends and community. There's a sense of altruism in, how you exist in the world. Maybe you're one that wants to volunteer, and certainly Pisces season is a time for you to remember your natural generosity. I think there really is a natural generosity with Taurus ruled by Venus. So Pisces season is saying, as much as you have accumulated, or as much as you have created material stability for yourself, don't forget to give back. So Jupiter in your 11th sign, when Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces, this has been a focus on your community, on friendships, on your social circle, and growing your community, your friendships, and your social circle. So really enjoy being around people as much as one can these days, now that it's Pisces season. But I think with Jupiter, it's kind of giving you a hope, it's giving you a faith, it's giving you a sense of vision for the future. And I will say, because we've talked about this previous weeks, Taurus, you're a fixed sign, and the fixed signs are not so fixed at the moment. There's been a lot of shifts and change in your life, especially over the last few years, and maybe you need that sense of hope again. You need that sense of nourishment, and maybe even the nourishment by your friends, your peers, your community, in order to keep you going, because life is going to ask a lot of you this year, especially with the eclipses happening in Taurus. Uranus is still in Taurus, Saturn's still in Aquarius, so you're really at a crossroads, but don't forget that there is beauty in this world and that you have the support of your friends and community. Gemini, Pisces is your career sign. Yes, maybe you didn't know that, but Pisces is the sign that governs your professional life. And we don't always think about Pisces and Gemini having a lot in common, but on some level, Gemini, you aspire to Pisces in your professional life. And maybe if you had, if you had control, and maybe you do what you love. And I think on some level with Pisces being your career sign, you have to do what you love. Some signs and some charts, meaning the exact moment that you're born, I tell people, it's like, I don't care if you make $1 million. I don't care if you're the most powerful person in the world. But the way that your chart is built, it says first, it has to feed your soul. So Gemini, this is a time for you to remember that whatever you're doing in this world, whatever ambitions, whatever status and title, it has to feed your soul. And with Jupiter there, Jupiter is certainly opening up doors for you professionally. Maybe it's getting you to reconsider what is more important in your professional life. Is it achievement for achievement's sake? or is it something greater? So maybe Pisces season for you is sort of a tone shift, a value shift, a time for you to really nourish something out in the world. And maybe Jupiter is reminding you that there is benevolence out there. There is the possibility of good fortune, even though I don't like to normally overpromise Jupiter and good fortune. But this is a time, Jupiter does, I will say, Jupiter moves very quickly through Pisces, so this could be a little bit of an ephemeral time for your professional life, but certainly that new moon that's on March 2nd, you really want to use those opportunities in March to really go after something that seems like a dream, but actually maybe it's more than a dream. Maybe it's a reality. And sometimes, and I know this personally because I'm Sag rising, I'm ruled by Jupiter, my chart's ruled by Jupiter. Just notice that like sometimes things that you thought almost like miraculous can come. So be open to miracles right now, Gemini, especially as you go into that Pisces new moon on March 2nd. That is your new moon to reset your professional life. Cancer. So Pisces governs over what's called your ninth sign, the ninth house of your chart. And this talks about what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What's your truth? It's also education and travel, and the way that we all have to sort of figure out where we stand in the world. And so this is a time where, maybe what you stand for, maybe what you believe in is coming from a very intuitive place. Maybe there's a sense of wanting to give back in the world, maybe wanting to help people, because Jupiter is in it's what's called an accidental dignity. This is a time, as much as one can these days, a time for travel, foreign travel, long distance travel. But if it's not a physical journey, it's certainly a larger metaphoric journey. And this is a time, Cancer, where you're trying to figure out what everything means. What do you believe in? What's your truth? And maybe you have to search, whether you're searching within or whether you are looking outwardly into the world. And Cancer, even though Pisces season is a little bit ephemeral, and Jupiter will be in and out of this space this year, but you could use some hope. I mean, I say this quite frequently, Cancer. You're just doing some really heavy lifting emotionally at the moment with Saturn in your 8th, and so use Jupiter's time to really find that sense of what's miraculous to you, what could possibly happen at this time that restores your faith. And hopefully Jupiter in your 9th is not a loss of faith, but I think there is a very beautiful benevolence. And so as you go into that Pisces new moon next week on March 2nd, this is going to be a time, Cancer, for you to really refocus on what do you believe in, what's your truth, what's your convictions, but also to look outwardly into the world, and if appropriate to travel that place, or to search for something on a deeper emotional level. Leo, Pisces is your 8th sign. So this is how I describe the 8th sign of anybody's chart. It is a space in the chart where you have to go and face yourself. It's just that sort of building block in the journey of anybody's chart, where we have to have that space where we are tested, where we have to look within, we have to ask ourselves the hard questions, where we have to feel our vulnerability and to navigate intimacy and intimate connections. So Pisces season, and the sign of Pisces, is a time when you're really feeling deep emotions. I will say, Leo, you're a fixed sign, and as I've been saying over and over again, the fixed signs are not so fixed at the moment. And maybe all this change has really brought up a lot of complicated emotions, like how do I open up? How do I trust? How do I have faith that even with all these difficult things, or stressful, maybe not always difficult, but certainly stressful, these stressful things, how do I able to pull through? Is there help? Is there God? Is there divine help in all of this? But this is a time where typically you're feeling a little bit more existential, more reflective, more intuitive, and certainly more emotional, if I didn't say that already. And this is a time when you are navigating these themes around power and control and death and rebirth and intimacy and vulnerability. On a more mundane level, Pisces is one of your money signs. So kind of when Pisces is involved in money, it's one of those things where it's like you want to make sure that, how do I put this? It's like, I kind of said this for, I think it was Gemini. It's like, I don't care if you make $1 million, you got to make sure that it's actually like, you feel good about it, that maybe you're sharing I think there's a natural generosity with Leo, and I think Pisces season on some level is a time for you to remember your generosity and for you to remember to help others who are maybe a little less fortunate. But that said, it's time for you to focus on money and income and finance and assets and wealth and debt and taxes. Certainly it's tax season, but that is Pisces for you. Virgo. So Pisces is your relationship sign. Maybe you didn't know that, but Pisces season is your natural time for you to connect with other people. It's a time when maybe even other people demand your attention or demand your time. So in advance of next week's Pisces new moon, maybe you're sort of pointing outward, pointing towards other people. So this is your natural time for you to connect with other people. And astrology reminds us that we can't do things alone. So relationship, the time when the sun is in the relationship sign, we can't do things alone. And maybe we naturally connect and we get in a relationship, or we are going back to our existing relationships. We are renewing our existing relationships. And this is the thing about Jupiter in this part of your chart right now. One is very strong. So this is a huge time about other people at this juncture. Jupiter does move very quickly through this part of your chart. It sort of dipped in between, I think it was last May to last July 2001, and then back at the end of December of 2001, and then it's out in May of 2022, but it's back, I think it's October, and then back out in December 2022. But Jupiter is either bringing people into your life, and maybe in ways that feel like generous and abundant and maybe restore a sense of hope, or maybe sometimes Jupiter gives us the confidence to leave relationships that are just not working. You know, it's sort of the hand that pulls us out of something, gets us out of a toxic relationship, or gives us the courage and the confidence to actually leave a relationship. So sometimes it seems a little counterintuitive. Jupiter goes into a relationship sign and a relationship ends. Sometimes even there's divorce. We don't always think about that, but I think Jupiter is really putting a spotlight on relationships right now, and hopefully bringing good relationships into your life, or renewing existing relationships. And certainly pay attention to that Pisces new moon next week, because that's going to be your time to really focus on other people in your life. Libra. So Pisces is your sixth sign, and this is where, because Libra, you are what's called a flip chart, we're sort of having a very reversed mixed influence here. So when I say flip chart, normally Aries is the first sign, Pisces is the 12th, but then in a Libra chart, Libra is the first sign, Pisces is the 6th, the other end of things. So the sixth sign in your chart, Libra, is about health and wellness, and this is your time in your personal zodiac calendar for you to tend to your physical body. But the irony is that the sign that governs this part of your life is Pisces. So this is saying to be gentle, to be compassionate with yourself, be compassionate with your body and your health, and to take care of yourself. And maybe you're not hitting the gym and lifting weights, and maybe you're dancing, maybe you're swimming, maybe it's a quiet time for you, and where health is something that's done on a very slow and deliberate level. Pisces is also saying that whatever your life looks like, and maybe whatever tasks and things that you have to do, make them beautiful. Like, we all have to do the really mundane human things every day, but maybe Libra, you do it with a flair, you do it again with beauty and grace and charm. You kind of get that There is a Venusian connection to Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces, a little bit of a technical point. But maybe you're using this time to take care of your health and wellness in very almost like spa-like ways. That sounds nice. Sometimes when Pisces is part of, let's say, and certainly the sixth, it's health and wellness, but it's even like the foods that you eat and how you nourish yourself on a more of a on a nuts and bolts level, not on a pleasure level, more on like kind of taking care of your body level. And you're a sign, Libra, that you can't eat things that make you suffer. And you don't want to have that energy in your diet. You don't want to have that energy around you, because you can be very sensitive with Pisces in this part of your chart. But really bring in the energy of benevolence and generosity into your day-to-day life. Be of service to other people, especially with Jupiter there. Like I said, put energy into rituals and practice and care, and that's where Jupiter and Pisces can show up for you, and maybe even through ritual and through really wanting to manifest certain things into your life, Jupiter can actually be an aid. Scorpio. Pisces is a water sign. Hey, Scorpio, you are a water sign as well, and Pisces is your fifth sign. So this is the time in your personal zodiac calendar for you, in a way, to feel yourself and for you to like express who you are, for you to get back in touch with that passion, that spark of life, that creativity. As I was kind of saying for Aries, this is not the time to push. This is the time for you to remember to play. Certainly Scorpio, because you are a fixed sign, and the fixed signs are not so fixed at the moment, and a lot of things have been going on in your life. But that said, maybe remember that there is time for romance, there is time for pleasure, there is time for fun and creation and creativity. I will say, for those to whom this is relevant, this is a time where this can even be, focus on children and pregnancy, even certainly after that Pisces new moon on March 2nd. But this is a time for you to remember the sweetness of life, the fun of life, and certainly after everything you've been through in the past few years, Scorpio, have fun, loosen up. And something that I've said previous weeks, it's a thing what Scorpio is learning right now, is that Scorpio is learning that they're not in charge. They're not in control, which is not what normally Scorpio would prefer. But Jupiter and Pisces just says relax, have fun, enjoy life. Certainly life is very brief, and Scorpio, you are a sign that knows how brief life can be, and enjoy it while it lasts, because when the sun goes into Aries in March, at the end of March, you're back working hard and getting things done as you normally do, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Pisces is what's called your fourth sign, and the fourth sign of anybody's chart is about home and family. So this is the time in your personal zodiac calendar for you to focus on your home environment. And that can be in quite literal ways, and maybe Jupiter has inspired you to move. Maybe you moved when Jupiter was previously in Pisces, just for that short bit from May until July of 2021. But that new moon that's on March 2nd can maybe speak to a change in your living situation, a change in your home environment, and even possibly a move for those for whom that is relevant. But on a little bit more of a metaphoric level and even esoteric level, because it is Pisces, and this is a time for you to make sure that you're actually getting your roots nourished, that you're actually tending to what truly matters. And I think that's another level of this part of the chart. We always think about literally home and family, and certainly it is, but what's behind that? What is home? Where is home? Who is home? And maybe if you are planning a move, it's not just any move right now. It's a move in order to create that place that's truly going to support and nourish you. And again, there are miracles with Jupiter and Pisces. They are quite ephemeral and fleeting, and maybe life has been showing you some doors and you've been a little bit hesitant to go through them. But I think that on some level, this is about a leap of faith. Certainly for the first half of this year and the end of this year, Sagittarius. But with Jupiter, your planet in Pisces, it's moving a bit fast. Any planet that goes through Pisces moves typically very fast. That's a whole other topic. It's about the way things are built in the universe. Anyway, rotation of the Earth, wobble of the Earth. But anyway, that's a bigger conversation. But Jupiter down in this part of the chart, it is a time to make stronger emotional connections, for you to create a family, even if that family is not blood related. So really tend to your nest, tend to your home, tend to your deeper emotional connections. Make sure you are getting fed and supported and nurtured. And it's a little bit of a slower time for you, but this is a time for you to really set up a foundation. And this is a foundation, I'm getting a little bit ahead of things, but when Saturn goes into Pisces in March of 2023, which is just a year from now, that's when you're going to start a 3-year chapter, a 2.5-year chapter of really focusing on roots and foundations. So a little bit of let Jupiter plant some seeds, let sort of vision and create some magic right now, because when Saturn comes in next year, that's when it's time for things to really truly ground and manifest. Capricorn. Pisces is your third sign. We don't think about Capricorn being an intuitive sign, but Capricorn is the yin polarity to Saturn and Aquarius is yang polarity. And yin energy, it's receptive, it's intuitive, and Pisces as your sign that talks about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. This is a time for you, Pisces, for you to return to listening to that intuitive voice. And certainly Capricorn, you have been through a lot in the last decade astrologically, and I think even in 2021 with your planet Saturn in a hard square to Uranus, you've had to make a lot of changes. And sometimes we make changes because they make sense strategically, they make sense on paper. But I think Pisces season, Jupiter in Pisces, is a reminder for you to listen more to your intuition, because that intuitive voice is priceless, and you have to know yourself to be able to listen to your intuition. On a more mundane level, Pisces season is a time for you to focus on education, travel, trips, things around the neighborhood. There's a sense of localness with this part of your chart, and maybe there's a lot of movement. Maybe road trips, for example. But that said, maybe you are taking classes. Sorry, that's my dog. Taking classes, maybe you are focusing on, how you are communicating, and certainly how communication can be built on compassion and gentleness and mutual understanding. Aquarius. So Pisces is your second sign. The second sign talks about money and income and material stability. And Pisces seems to be a little bit of an interesting sign to have in a part of the chart that talks about matter and manifestation and material need and value. Because Pisces, as I said earlier, is very spiritual sign. It's very about our universality, not about what we want. And I think it's a reminder that Aquarius actually can be quite generous. And, when you have Pisces as part of your money story, that's what I say to people. I don't care if you make $1 million. I know I've said this before in this video, but I don't care if you make $1 million. First, it has to feed your soul. And so this is a time for you, Aquarius, to sort of return back to the things that you truly value on a deeper level, to really make sure that how you earn a living, how you spend money, the things that you invest in, the things that you gather, the resources that you have access to, really aligns with your deeper values. And of course, the Pisces new moon on March 2nd next week is really going to bring this in. But you do have Jupiter in your money sign right now. This is not the case for everybody, but I certainly wish this for everyone, of course. Jupiter can bring in financial opportunity. It can bring in windfalls. It can bring in really subtle, miracles. And maybe it's not money. Maybe it's help. It's aid. It's resource. There's a sense of the divine hand. That's this kind of this archetype with Jupiter and Pisces that that in the moment we need it the most, that there is this divine hand that pulls us up, that gives us something that we need, that we never thought would come. So be open to miracles right now, Aquarius. Certainly you have Jupiter in your court for the next few months. Use it well. Sometimes Jupiter can make us a little bit quick to spend money right now. That's maybe the shadow side of Jupiter in your money sign. So if you're spending a lot of money, just FYI, do what you gotta do. But that said, there is that sort of hope, right now, and maybe the sense that everything's going to work out. And Aquarius, you are a fixed sign. Fixed signs are not so fixed at the moment. You've certainly been through a lot the past couple of years, Aquarius, but allow others to help you. Allow the divine to help you. Allow that help to come in unexpected ways. Last but not least, Pisces. So Pisces, go back and listen to everything that I said about Pisces season when I started today's video. It's in a way, it's my love letter to Pisces. But Pisces, it's your season. Happy birthday. We got the Pisces new moon next week on March 2nd. If your birthday is on just about, plus or minus a couple of days from March 2nd, it means that this coming year for you is a time of new beginnings, renewal, new chapters. And with Jupiter there, Jupiter will be what's called conjunct the new moon. This is a time for growth and expansion and opportunities. And sometimes when Jupiter is in our sign, we physically can become larger. And sometimes that's because of pregnancy. Again, if this is actually relevant to you. But that said, be open to the sweetness of life, the potential, the fact that good things can happen. Like I said, I don't always like to oversell Jupiter, because I think that we get way too excited about good fortune, and Jupiter being this kind of Santa Claus of the zodiac. It doesn't really work that way. Jupiter has a shadow side as well, but I think there's a beauty and benevolence to Jupiter and Pisces, and it does give you a boost. It's a quick boost, but it gives you a boost until May, and then it gives you a boost from October to December. And even though it may be easy come, easy go, do plant your seeds, especially next week. Plant your seeds. And that's the thing I have to sort of add to this, is that Pisces definitely plant seeds, because right now Saturn is in your 12th, and it's hard to really manifest things right now, because at the same time Jupiter is going through your sign, you have Saturn bringing you to the end of a 30-year cycle. I know, 30 years, long time. So Saturn is matter and manifestation, but it's not in the place in your chart right now about matter and manifestation. It's actually in the place in your chart where you're trying to release and let go, and to sort of shift things in preparation for the new chapter that is going to open up for you in March of 2023. I realize that's a year from now, but I wanted to sort of give you that foresight, because this week, next week with the new moon, these are about, the earth is fertile for you in a way right now. There's a lot of confidence and courage and sort of the desire to be able to move forward, even if you've got one foot in an old life, Pisces. But plant these seeds, sort of get these opportunities sort of there, because maybe it's going to take Saturn next year to make them real, to make them grounded, and to actually manifest into reality. But again, you do have this boost in your sign right now. It's a time for you to really have a sense of renewal, have a sense of hope, have a sense of vision for the future, to have a sense of faith again, and to have that sort of optimism to set sail on a new chapter of your life. But again, we'll have lots more to talk about with the Pisces new moon next week on March 2nd. Hard to believe the next week is March. So that's where Pisces is through each of the 12 zodiac signs. And that is your look at the astrology of February 21st through 27th, 2022. My name is Katie Sweetman. This has been Empowering Astrology. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm even on Spotify. And I know I've talked about this previously, but I'm sorry about the people that keep cloning my content and doing spamming. It's happening to sorry, not spamming, scamming. It's been happening to my colleagues and also people who do tarot and similar things. So I just sort of say this, although I realize this is kind of at the end. Maybe a lot of you are all going to get dinner right now, but please report any account that approaches you, looks like me, but certainly does not talk like me. I would never ask you for a reading. That's just not how I work. Of course, you can become my client. Many of you who've been on the live call are my clients. You can book a consultation with me at empoweringastrology.com. That's the proper way to do it, not through some weirdo scammer that is messaging you on Instagram. But that said, I'm looking forward to connecting with you all next week, talking about March, talking about the Pisces new moon, Sun conjunct Jupiter, and we've got some Mars and Pluto in Capricorn action. But until next week, take care, be well, and I'll see you all later. Bye.